Pope Leo XIV's shocking message. Do this when receiving communion to avoid missing God's grace. From the very first moments of appearing before the public, the new Pope Leo XIII delivered an unmissable message, a profound wake-up call for all those who receive communion daily without truly recognizing the sacred value that the Eucharist brings. This is not just an ordinary sermon, but a call to awaken, a light shining into the souls of countless people who approach the sacrament indifferently, unintentionally losing their spiritual connection with Jesus Christ. He draws inspiration from St. Augustine, whose teachings on grace and the restless heart resonate in his call for a deeper encounter with Christ in the Eucharist, urging believers to see this sacrament as the pinnacle of God's self-giving love. While the world is buzzing with hot topics about politics, society, and endless debates, Pope Leo XIII does not follow that well-trodden path. He does not choose to exploit controversial issues or current events, but focuses directly on the deepest spiritual core, the Eucharist, the source of spiritual life in the Catholic faith. He boldly emphasizes that if we are not aware of the importance of this sacrament, if we receive communion without truly communicating with God, the grace we seek will pass by like the wind, leaving no mark on our souls. This message echoes the social teachings of Pope Leo XIII, whose name he took, emphasizing that true transformation begins with the interior renewal of each person through the sacraments. You may wonder why a newly inaugurated pope immediately addresses a seemingly traditional topic like this, instead of discussing contemporary issues. That is the strength and profundity of Pope Leo XIII's perspective. He understands that before we can change the external world, each of us must be renewed from within. And the Eucharist is the source of strength, the sacred flame that ignites faith and love in our relationship with God. He invites believers to view the Eucharist not as a static ritual, but as a dynamic encounter that bridges heaven and earth, uniting the faithful in a shared journey toward holiness. The sad reality today is that many people receive communion merely as a social ritual, or even a weekly habit without feeling the living presence of Jesus in their souls. They do not pray, do not converse, and do not take time in silence to receive grace. This has caused the Eucharist to become dim, losing the transformative power it inherently possesses. Pope Leo XIII has warned that receiving communion without preparation and spiritual connection is like receiving a precious gift, but leaving it in a corner, never unwrapping it. That is the greatest waste a Christian can commit. For the Eucharist is not merely bread and wine, it is God Himself present with you, loving you, and wanting to transform you daily. He reminds us that as St. John Paul II taught, the Eucharist is the source and summit of Christian life, a mystery that demands our full attention and devotion. Therefore, Pope Leo XIII's call is not only for priests or those with positions in the Church, but for all the faithful, everyone who receives communion. From those taking their first steps in faith to those who have been committed for years, he invites everyone to awaken, to open their hearts, to fully receive the grace of the Eucharist, and, through it, live a new life in the love and constant presence of God. With these powerful opening words, Pope Leo XIII has posed a great challenge to everyone. Will you dare to change how you view, receive, and live the Eucharist? Will you have the courage to not just receive communion for the sake of it, but to truly converse, connect, and let God transform your life? He encourages practical steps, such as preparing for Mass with a brief examination of conscience or offering a personal intention for each communion, to make the experience deeply personal and transformative. Therefore, this message will explore deeper the valuable advice of the Pope, the secrets to communicating with God in every moment of receiving communion, and most importantly, how to make each communion a vibrant, grace-filled experience that no one can miss. The idea of communicating with God during communion. Right after his impactful opening, Pope Leo XIV continues to make listeners reflect deeply by boldly calling the phenomenon of many people receiving communion without truly conversing or communing with Jesus in the Eucharist a form of practical atheism. This phrase not only startles but challenges each person to re-examine how they receive spiritual grace. He compares this to a conversation where one party remains silent, leaving the relationship unfulfilled, and urges believers to approach the Eucharist as a two-way dialogue with the living Christ.